All right, today we're jumping into a really provocative idea from Howard Bloom's The Lucifer Principle. And it asks a tough question. What if evil isn't really a choice, but a feature, a built-in part of nature? Yeah, this theory is definitely going to challenge how you think about, well, pretty much everything.
So let's just dive right in with a question that's at the absolute heart of this whole thing. We all like to think we're in the driver's seat of our own lives, right? But what if? What if something much bigger is actually pulling the strings?
To even begin to unpack that, we've got to start with this powerful myth we all know and love. You know, the idea of the rugged individual, the master of their own destiny. Think Clint Eastwood riding off into the sunset, alone.
You know the one I'm talking about. It's this idea that we're supposed to be these totally self-contained units. Thinkers like Erich Fromm even argued that needing other people was some kind of weakness. The ideal person, according to this myth, is completely self-reliant, kind of like a spaceship that makes its own oxygen.
And get this wasn't just some fantasy from the movies. For a long time, a huge chunk of evolutionary theory actually backed this up. The prevailing science was all about individual selection. The idea that the lone creature's struggle to survive is the only thing that really matters. The individual was the absolute star of the show.
But what if that entire premise, that whole foundation, is just wrong? The Lucifer Principle basically says, yeah, it is. And it paints a radically different and honestly much stranger picture of who we are.
So the book just throws that whole idea out the window. It argues that we aren't really individuals in the way we think. We are fundamentally, deeply members of larger social groups. And here's the kicker. The survival of that group often comes before our own.
And this leads us to this really wild concept called the superorganism. Bloom wants us to imagine a culture, a nation, or even an ideology as a single living thing. And us, we're the cells inside of it, each of us playing a part, usually without even realizing it, to keep that big creature alive and thriving.
Okay, so this is where the theory gets its name, and this is where we have to start looking at the really dark side of our need to belong. It's not as simple as just good versus evil.
And this quote, it just nails a really chilling truth, doesn't it? We've all kinda sensed this. People in a crowd, in a mob, they're capable of doing things they would never, ever dream of doing alone. The group has its own bizarre, powerful, and sometimes terrifying mind.
And here it is, the big idea. The Lucifer Principle isn't talking about some devil with horns. It's the idea that what we call evil is actually a tool that nature uses. The greatest evils in history, they're not the private sins of one person. They are the mass savageries that happen when one superorganism, one group, tries to dominate another.
And check this out. This isn't just a philosophical idea. A real study by social psychologist Brian Mullen found this terrifying pattern. The bigger a lynch mob gets, the more vicious and unbelievably brutal the violence becomes. It's like the group's madness literally feeds on itself.
And look, this isn't just about getting swept up in a moment of passion. The theory argues that these group dynamics are literally hardwired into our biology. It's in the very structure of our brains.
Think of your brain like it has 3 layers. At the very bottom, you've got the ancient reptile brain, all about survival, territory, the basics. On top of that is the mammal brain, driving our emotions, our need for social bonds. And then way up on top, that's the human cortex, our reason. But it's just this surprisingly thin layer, this little veneer of logic, desperately trying to manage these powerful ancient drives bubbling up from below.
Our need to belong is so deep, so essential to our biology, that when we're cut off from our superorganism, from our tribe, our bodies can actually trigger self-destruct mechanisms. Being totally isolated isn't just sad, it can be a biological death sentence.
This is all captured in the true and just heartbreaking story of a young chimp named Flint. After his mother died, he lost his one crucial social bond, and he just gave up. He curled up and died. The autopsy found nothing physically wrong with him. He seems to have died from the sheer biological pain of having that connection to his group severed.
So, wow. After all that, what are we supposed to do with this information? What's the takeaway? How does this completely unsettling theory change the way we should look at the world?
Here's the most important takeaway. We have to see ourselves differently. We are not rugged individuals. We are cells in a social beast. And the greatest evils humanity has ever produced are the work of that beast. The book argues that nature built this capacity for group violence into us for a reason.
And if we'd ever want to outwit it, we first have to be brave enough to look it right in the eye and understand it.
And that really is the whole point of this explainer. This theory doesn't ask you to just believe it. It's a tool, it's a new lens to look through, designed to make you think differently about history, about conflict, and about human nature itself.
So we're going to leave you with this final thought to really chew on. If we are just components, just little cells inside these massive superorganisms that are locked in this timeless, often brutal struggle, what does that mean for our ideas of free will, of personal responsibility? In this giant, epic drama, what exactly is our part to play?